Pop Culture Pastor.
Cody, people get so uptight when you leave your kids in the car during the summer, when you just run into the store, and no amount of you left the window cracked and gave them an orange freeze will will satisfy them. I'm just kidding. If I leave my kids in the car, I always leave it running with the air conditioner on. But I wanted to use that was a funny line to me when Raylan says that in the court.
And it wasn't even a kid. It was an adult.
It's two adults. I left him with the window cracked. That was the best part. And that is, of course, part of the introduction of our watch along. Our watch along for this next, what do we got? 5 weeks?
Or so.
Something around there of this. It's a 6-episode season, but we get the first 2 episodes right off the gate of Justified, City Primeval. So we're going to be doing a watch along of that. This is episode 1 and 2.
You're welcome.
It's a good thing they dropped both of them, by the way. I like that because episode 1 of especially these like mid-range, anywhere from 4 to 7 episode-ish type things. Episode 1's usually a lot of setup.
It is. Which this one, it did require some setup, especially if you weren't someone that had watched the original Justified. So the original Justified, which ran for several seasons, the way my parents described it to me, because they watched I didn't start watching Justified till after 3 seasons had already been out. My parents loved it, and they're like, so it's about this guy. He's a U.S. Marshal.
He wears a cowboy hat.
He does wear a cowboy hat, and he has to go to Kentucky, where he's from, and basically he gets in these predicaments where he has to kill someone, but he's always justified because someone's pulling a gun on him or trying to do something to him. And so he's always doing self-defense. And this one, right out the gate, I'm like, are they going to have him kill someone immediately? And then, no, they didn't. Because, towards the end of the series, Raylan had gone around to developing some other skills of I'll work with you, and if you hold up your end, I'll hold up my end.
Yeah,
and that's where we start off.
Yeah, and so it's good. It's good that we bring up the old series of the Justified too, because look, let's be really honest. Oh, he's the anti-hero he's unpredictable and he's got a bad attitude sometimes and he wears a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
And there's so many tropes involved in the story, the setup and the premise of Justified, that you would think, why did this become a successful thing? What set this show apart? And the answer to me is always Timothy Oliphant, and to another extent, the bad guy from the original series, Walton Goggins played
Boyd Crowder.
They were amazing, and Timothy Oliphant being willing to do more story of Raylan Givens. So the minute he appears on screen in the intro to this, and it's like a 15-minute cold open, by the way.
Oh yeah.
And so the minute he's on screen, he's there with his daughter, and I mean his real daughter. So the girl that plays his daughter in this show, Willa, is played by Vivian Oliphant, his real life daughter.
Oliphant.
My bad. Oliphant. I don't want to say that wrong. But before we get into this, there's something we need to talk about.
Okay.
And this is look, I know that the danger of this is I'm going to be prudish. It's well, Dave's, we're pastors, so we have to talk about this. But in the cold open, literally, it's in the cold open, the first 15 minutes of the show, when we're being introduced to Clement Mansell, played by Boyd Holbrook, who, by the way, is fantastic.
In everything Boyd does,
there is a graphic sex scene, which stunned me because there was nothing like that.
That's not entirely true.
It wasn't that graphic.
Like so I can remember, especially when Raylan got back with his ex, who is Willa's mom, who was played by Natalie Z, that like it got intense.
Okay. Well, regardless, it doesn't happen. It didn't happen a lot in the old show. I don't remember it. And my problem still remains. What did that add to the story? Like, look, we just saw Oppenheimer. There's some nudity in Oppenheimer and some graphic things in there. And there was an attempt made in the movie to make that do something for the characters. You're supposed to be feeling something the characters are feeling in that moment. So there was a purpose to it. Like, there was no purpose in the graphicness of this scene other than to tell us that the bad guy who we're being introduced to and this girl, his accomplice, are in an intimate relationship, which you could do without the graphicness.
FX, at least for the past decade, has been more HBO-y, if you want to use that as...
we do, and we say things are HBO-y. Why? Because this is what HBO does. And I still haven't forgiven them for what they did to Game of Thrones. I love the Game of Thrones books, which have bad things going on in them, but it's not graphic. The books aren't graphic. There's not details. And then when they turned the show into TV show on HBO, there was all this graphic stuff thrown in there. And I'm just like, why? What purpose is this? Other than to just HBO it up. So we use that term occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's neither here nor there. Everyone's level of comfort will be different with the graphic.
So honestly,
that violence, curse words, everyone's level of comfort will be different. I'm just saying VidAngel might come in handy.
I completely forgot about the opening scene until like we were talking about Oppenheimer, and then you brought it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, Clement.
Yeah.
I completely forgot.
Well, right, because it has no bearing on the story or the characters whatsoever. We didn't need that to know that those two were probably intimate. Right? We didn't need to know that. We see them the next morning in the hotel room. And he's shirtless. Like, we know.
We do know.
Adults do that. But yeah, I just thought it was completely unnecessary. But here's the problem. When it's unnecessary, it takes me out of my enjoyment of the show. And to do it within the first 15 minutes, really, like, it knocked me for a loop because I spent a good amount of time, like, just kind of circulating in my head, like, why did they do that? Like, what was the point of that? And I'm like not as into the show as I was. So I will say the first episode of this kind of threw me for a loop a little bit as I was trying to recuperate from the pointlessness of that scene.
So they do that scene really early on in the episode, and then like other things around other characters happen, so I completely forget about Clement existing for a while.
Right.
And so, like, I quickly adjusted and moved on.
Yeah. Well, I'll explain it to you. It makes me, okay, so when you do that and you throw me out of the story, so when I get thrown out of the story and I'm trying to imagine the playbook at that point. So here's what I'm saying. Like, to me, that feels planned. Like, let's really throw this in right at the beginning to show that this is edgy, right? We're HBOing it, right? This is edgy. It's FX. We're edgy. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see anything like that in the rest of the show, which tells me you threw it in the first 15 minutes intentionally to maybe hold a certain kind of viewer, I guess. I don't know. It gets me out. I start thinking about things like that instead of thinking about the story. And I would be remiss if I didn't say anything about it early. I don't like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm okay with seeing adults, like I'm okay with being exposed to certain levels of that, but to me, once it goes past the line, then you're just trying to shock people or titillate them, one or the other, and either one I'm not so down with. But
there was too many people being introduced that I was like, you got this person? And so, like, yeah, I'm quickly back into it.
I will say it just took me a little bit to get back into the show. So the first episode I was kind of neutral with, and then once the second episode gets going, I'm back in. But let's talk about the rest of the show now. As we meet Raylan and his daughter at the beginning. They're in Florida. They're on their way to drop his kid off at some camp of some sort.
Delinquent camp.
She calls it conversion therapy, and I'm like, oh, whoa, what are we talking about here? And he tells her, he quickly corrects her, but it made me wonder, whoa, what's going on there? But we quickly move away from that when two thugs just pick the wrong car to try and steal. Is that a thing that thugs do, by the way? Do they try and steal people's cars while they're driving them? And because if you run them off the road, don't you wreck the car?
So if you don't damage it that much and you startle the person and you have a stolen car, you need to steal another car because their authorities are looking for this car. It made sense to me. Yeah, I was with it.
Well, it made sense. I just wondered if that's a thing that happens, but
it does somewhat because, like, I've heard of several cases where, like, oh, they stole a car and then they went to another town. And they stole another car and then they just kept. And I'm like, how many cars are people leaving their keys in?
Well, they picked the wrong one because they picked the one with Raylan Givens in it. That's what kickstarts our story. These two guys are they're criminals from Michigan. And so we get sent after his questionable treatment, which, look, when it's Raylan Givens, we know that the perps might not always be treated great. And we immediately get thrown into a courtroom situation where they the lawyer for the guys turn it back on Raylan and his mistreatment of them to get it thrown out. Now, meanwhile, the judge, who is also a black man,
Keith David,
who
I'm like, they got Keith David.
I know. And I was excited about until the end, until we get through the first two episodes. But he's been get blown up that morning, and he's clearly a crooked judge.
Yeah, Keith David.
He's involved in some bad stuff, but he's frustrated, he's mad, and so he basically throws out all the Florida charges. But then he tries, he's been trying to get blown up, and he also says, this dude Raylan Givens seems like a dude who might be able to help me catch the people that tried to blow me up. So,
but we would be remiss if we didn't say that Raylan clearly told the guy what to say and what to do for his lawyer, because there was a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge of, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Right.
And then, it cuts immediately to the courtroom, and then Raylan being not completely forthcoming with his information, just leaves it as generic blanket statements, and then the lawyer goes in, you left them in the car while you tried to drop your daughter off at this camp, instead of going directly to the police station. And she just kept going on, and it was very obvious that he's like, I'll get this case thrown out for you if you guys cooperate and help me. And
that is true.
So again, this is Raylan being Raylan. So I loved it. I was here for it.
Yeah.
But it played into a good trope, which this show does and always has, played into the tropes of whatever's happening within the times. And it's, the white law enforcement officer and one of the defendants was black, mistreating this black defendant clearly there is some racial bias going, which in this case there wasn't. There was more, I'm helping you out because you are working with me.
Yeah.
Type deal.
Well, and it's just we get introduced to a lot of the characters here in the first episode. It does become obvious of why they dropped 2 episodes right off the bat in the first week. So that is nice that they do that, because the first episode is largely they're just setting up a bunch of characters.
Oh yeah.
We meet the lawyer is who we're meant to, the court scene is a good way to introduce this lawyer, who is played by Ingenue Ellis. She plays the lawyer Carolyn Wilder.
Yes.
And okay, immediately I'm in on this character. I'm fascinated with this character. We don't get a lot. She appears to be mixed up with some bad folks.
Yes.
Because she represents all the bad folks.
All of them.
Including the main bad guy, Clement Mansell. And am I correct in assuming it feels like she doesn't want to be?
Oh, she definitely doesn't want to be representing Clement.
She feels trapped, though.
But because someone will meet later on, Sweetie, who is the bar owner.
Played by Vondi Curtis Hall, famous character actor from the 80s and 90s.
And he is who she is friends with, who she cares about, who she wants to help. But Clement has some things on Sweetie that would cause Sweetie a world of hurt.
Yeah.
So kind of a blackmail situation.
So clearly we got this Clement guy who's got his talons in people and is a master manipulator and is able to control people in this way, but he's not from Detroit.
No, he's not.
So it makes you wonder, like, are we going to get enough backstory to figure out why? Or are we just supposed to, do you think we're just going to be made to take this? Just say, well, they have a past and that's enough together. Or do you think they'll spell out what exactly is happening and why? Because it does seem weird that, we've got some Detroit people who are being manipulated and controlled by the main bad guy who's not from Detroit.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's spelled out plenty in the second episode. Mm-hmm. At least one significant event. Now, it doesn't tell you why Sweetie and Clement were connected before.
Yeah.
But this one event literally would, even if Sweetie didn't get charged with anything, which he probably would get charged with a few things, if he didn't get charged, he wouldn't be safe in his own neighborhood after that. Because snitches tend to get stitches.
So we're introduced to the lawyer in the court scene. Then Raylan kind of gets involved with the police in Detroit there, as he's kind of recruited into just this hunt for whoever tried to kill the judge.
Marshal's office in Detroit's like, we need you to stay here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Help out the law enforcement here.
By the way, which they catch in like the first 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like they catch within the first episode, they catch the dudes who tried to bomb the judge. But it wasn't meant to kill him. It was, like they say, that it was meant to
send a message.
Send a message. Right. That's the exact words he says. So they catch him. But then this is how it all gets connected with Boyd Holbrook's Clement Mansell, who just first impulse, do you think this guy can live up to Walton Goggins' Boyd Crowder?
He's going, okay, so the thing with Walton, like there was always a more of like a love friend slight enemy relationship.
Yeah, Boyd had a heart.
Yes.
Yeah. So
where I think this one, there will be a mutual respect. come the end, or at least a respect on the part of Boyd Holbrook's character for Raylan, but I don't think that there will be like, hey, buddy.
The interesting thing that it seems like they're going to try and do with this character is because, so here's the thing, when you do like sequels, and this is basically a sequel, when you do sequels, the bad guy has to become somewhat more threatening than the last bad guy, right? He has to be more formidable.
Well, the main thing I think that will separate this is just that this won't be anyone Raylan's connected to from the past. Because it Justified, he knew all these people. He grew up there. And so, like, none of these people were outside his wheelhouse. These are all primarily small town, like drug pushers and all this and that. And, oh, the Bennett family, they run this little hollow over here. And, oh, this family does this. And, yeah.
So him knowing Boyd could be a boon, could be a good thing at times, and it could also be a bad thing, them knowing each other so well. So here you get a guy in Clement who
is an unknown quantity.
Yeah, he's unknown quantity. Now, here's where I think they're trying to separate him from the bad guy in the original series, Boyd, and make this guy, Clement, more formidable. And I think that's with the scene with his daughter. So in the second episode, and we're having to mash this all together because we're reviewing 2 episodes at once. We're just trying to hit the important things. But he tracks down his daughter. How he knows, how he figures this out and pieces it all together, I'm not entirely sure. He's clearly highly intelligent.
Highly intelligent, and it seems like he is connected with enough people that probably owe him favors, and he probably has something on them like he has on Sweetie. That's how he gets his lawyer.
Yeah.
So
and he's super observant. We know that. Anyways, he tracks down Raylan's daughter at the hotel they're staying at, and he uses it to send a message. So the message, when Raylan shows up and his daughter is not in the room, he finds his daughter down in the restaurant in the hotel, I'm assuming, with the bad guy Clement. And the whole message from Clement to Raylan is, I can get to you. Right? I think that's the message he's trying to send.
Oh, yeah.
He's over the top in trying to rile him. And it also goes to show how much Raylan has progressed from when we first meet him in the original series, because I think the old Raylan would have killed this dude immediately.
Potentially.
And we would have had to be like, it's justified.
It is.
But like, he's like weirdly like flirting with his daughter, who's clearly not at an age that he should be doing that. Like, it was weird. He was doing it to get a rise out of Raylan. And at some point, the daughter realizes that by looking at her dad's face and seeing the rage under control, but the rage, and then it barely holds on until he can get him outside and start, busting him up a little bit.
What was the nickname that he had given Raylan?
Chicken fat.
Yeah.
Because he makes up a story on the spot about how they were old friends and Raylan was always eating at the chicken fat in college or whatever.
And I'm like, who comes up with that nickname?
And I think what we're supposed to know about Clement in these first 2 episodes is that he's probably a sociopath.
He seems like it.
He doesn't care about other people only in as far as how he can use them.
Clearly by his relationship with his lady friend.
Yeah, played by Adelaide Clemens. Her name is Sandy. And yeah, she's clearly being used. And that's highlighted in the way that he leaves their operation, where she's pretending to like a rich dude at the casino she works at, going home with him, meant to be followed by Clement. And because the judge made him mad leaving the parking garage, he follows the judge and he kills the judge.
Oh, yeah.
So we get Keith David for like an episode and a half. Uncool.
Really just an episode, and then his body in flashbacks.
Which is a bummer. Although I think his character's activities are still going to keep playing a role as he comes away with this notebook full. How come all the bad guys have ledgers?
Because that's what happens in Detroit, Dave.
All the bad guys always have ledgers of like where all the dirty money's coming from. And so Clement is now in possession of this, and we assume that he's going to be doing some blackmailing.
Poor judge assistant, though.
Yeah.
She really didn't.
Who turns out to be a plant.
Yes.
So the cops are very upset when they find that the judge's assistant, who was just kind of hanging with the judge and maybe an illicit relationship, turns out was a police plant. And she also gets killed by Clement, who, like, I think and we'll see if you agree with this. To me, especially the second episode is really to show us who we're dealing with here with Clement. And what you're dealing with is a dude who will forget about anything and everything that he was doing planning wise to just go kill someone that made him mad. So I think we're supposed to see that this is how he's different and more of a threat than Boyd was. Why he's more formidable is because, one, we've already said he's unpredictable. He's volatile. 2, he's murderous. And 3, he's probably a sociopath. Like, he really doesn't care about anybody or everybody. And I think we see that in the scene with Raylan's daughter.
So a scene with him that I think like does so much building for his character is I think it's the second episode that we get Sweetie and him at this house where Sweetie's hanging out with these guys. They're smoking, they're drinking, and then Clement's like, "Howdy, fellas. Give me your money." And then the guy doesn't give him that much money, and he's like, "Come on, I know dealers carry cash." And so basically it ends in the murder of the whole house. But they are able to track down Clement, and when they go to the hotel where he's at and he sees them coming, like, he makes a phone call and is like, "You better get me your lawyer because I don't know how long I can be quiet." And then he just lays in bed and starts smoking a cigarette as the cops come in.
Yeah.
I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah. So he clearly has confidence in his lawyer, who appears to be, pretty good at what she does. Since we're doing 2 episodes and 1 episode of watch-alongs here, everything's compacted. So let's just give me one thing you liked about the first 2 episodes and one thing you didn't like.
The one thing I liked is Raylan's still Raylan.
Yeah.
Isn't
Timothy Oliphant great?
He is amazing. Literally, when they find the guy that tried to blow up the judge's car or did blow up the judge's car, his negotiations with the guy was great. And then when the Detroit cop kicks the door and it breaks the guy's nose because he's on the other side of the door, Timothy Oliphant's like, "I don't know if that was necessary." I'm like,
I love that scene gave us the balance of how effective Raylan is at doing what he does, and then the rashness of the Detroit police officers. So
it's how we do it in Detroit.
Yeah, we immediately. So this is the best part. If you've never watched the series, the original series, Justified, is you really have to.
You don't have to.
You find out everything you need to know about Raylan is that he's good at what he does, and he's somewhat of a maverick. But he's also going to be dealing with the police department that's pretty full of itself and is out there trying to be like the Wild West themselves.
Mm-hmm. And when you have Marshall that wears a cowboy hat, you got to step up your game and throw on extra machismo. And the Detroit Police Department does it.
What I'm guessing is that at some point we're going to see the DPD guys get what's. I think they're headed for an Oedipus-like Greek tragedy fall here.
They are.
I feel like some of the Detroit Police Department are going to meet their end when it comes to Clement and their tough guy attitude when it comes up against Clement. We'll see if I'm right. That's a prediction.
So, like, Raylan's liners still hit. His, like, nice, even, cool demeanor still is cool. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I'm just glad that it's back.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's one thing you didn't like about the first 2 episodes?
So, like, for me, it probably was, I'm going to say the Detroit Police Department, just because they're so arrogant. But like you said, I think it's building towards a crescendo in a Greek tragedy. But a lot of people that I've talked to, because I probably have talked to 6 people at least about this show. They don't like Willa.
Yeah, well, okay. This gets into what I don't like. So I'll just lead off with what I don't like. As soon as she starts like just wandering around Detroit, I was immediately pointing at my television going, they're pulling a Kim Bauer. So if you've watched 24, the most annoying character early on in 24 was Jack Bauer's daughter, Kim Bauer, because she was remarkably dumb and constantly being used by the bad guys because of and so like I'm thinking, okay, here's what we've been introduced to Willa, who's his daughter. She's like, we're given a few clues early on that she's street smart, she's intelligent because she's Raylan's daughter. Why wouldn't she be?
Literally can tell a fake Rolex
and
hustle a hustler.
But then you immediately set her just wandering around Detroit and what appears to be not very good areas of Detroit. And I'm just like, okay, you can't have it both ways. She's either street smart or she's going to be the damsel in distress. Which one is it going to be? Because you feel like even to the point where she falls for Clement's stuff to get her out, to draw her out. Like, really? She wouldn't have thought about that a little bit? If she's street smart, she's street smart. Let her be clever.
So some articles I've seen talk about her, and the thing that they don't like is because they said that this is it Leonard Elmore or Elmore Leonard?
Elmore Leonard.
Elmore Leonard. That this Elmore Leonard series / books, they use tropes, and that's how it's able to stay timely. And oftentimes it works for the benefit of the series, but the trope of the rebelling teen doesn't land with this character. Now, for me, I am okay with her. I'm not overly fond, but I'm also not like, she's just distracting from the show with how awful this character is. But literally her just roaming around Detroit, I'm like, knock it off, Willa, get back.
Yeah.
Listen to your dad.
Yeah, I'm not here. I saw some people bombing on the actress, who, by the way, is Timothy Oliphant's daughter.
The thing is, I think a lot of people forget. Mom was like the same way, though, in the original series. Natalie Z would do everything the opposite of what Raylan told her to do. And I'm like, Natalie, knock it off.
Yeah.
So, like, honestly, if she's been raised by her mom primarily, that dad gets, like, these visitations or extended visits, I can see her being somewhat street smart, but then being the strong, independent type that's going to do whatever she wants, just like her mom. So it fit for me.
Yeah, it was. I didn't like it just because of the tropiness of it. Like, to me, they're not doing her, the actress, any favors to play this kid so far. What I want to see going forward is that she's not a big part of the storyline, and she's also not a damsel in distress.
I think she's going to be a damsel in distress.
I know. That's what worries me. The thing I like about it so far is I love the cast immediately. You got lots of great character actors in this. We mentioned Vondi Curtis Hall, Keith David, Marin Island, who plays one of the cops. She's been in several shows I like. I think Boyd Holbrook is already, he just kind of exudes menacing. If you saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, he was also in that as a bad guy.
Logan, he was a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think because it was hyped up to be the last Wolverine movie, and because the girl that played Wolverine's daughter and Patrick Stewart were in this besides Hugh Jackman, that he got overlooked. But he
was
carried
great in that.
a significant amount of that movie.
So the cast for me is what's good so far, and just the return of what feels like an old friend. Raylan Givens is back, and he's Raylan, and I dig that.
Ravi Patel's in this, and you might be thinking, Cody, who is that? I'm glad you asked.
I did not ask.
There's this show, I think it's on Fox, Animal Control, which is a Joel McHale show. Mm-hmm. He's in it, and like he's awkwardly funny in it. And so he's like the guy that's the manager over the casino or whatever place the Clement's girlfriend works at. So,
who's the winner of the first 2 episodes, Cody?
It's probably going to be the winner of the whole series. Timothy Oliphant will always win, unless like someone has to like really step up their game and like go over the top.
Yeah.
To dethrone Timothy, because even towards the end of Justified, you had Sam Elliott show up,
and I forgot about that.
You have a lot of big people come in and out of the show, and yet Timothy Oliphant holds his own.
Yeah, this is like the first 2 episodes play like more of like an ensemble thing, though. Like Raylan isn't in every scene. He's not the point of every scene.
No, he's not.
So just in the interest of being interesting, I'll pick a different winner. Because I also think Timothy Oliphant's great. And I love that we get more Raylan Givens stories. So I'm just excited about this, where it's going. But I'm going to give co-winners. And I'm going to say Boyd Holbrook, who plays the bad guy, and Ingenue Ellis, who plays the lawyer.
I was going to say the lawyer probably gets episode 1 and Clement gets episode 2 for
very
me.
much so. In episode 1, I was fascinated, and I'm still fascinated with where we're going with the lawyer, who she is, how she got herself into this predicament, and where her true intentions and heart lies, because we don't quite know yet. And then, of course, we've already talked about Boyd Holbrook and how good he is and menacing he is. He's just menacing, just his aura, everything about him. He's a good bad guy.
He does dark well. In which he was good in Narcos, even though he was sort of a good guy, if the U.S. government can be good.
Who's the loser of the episode?
Let me say this with a sad look on my face. It will be a one Keith David.
Poor Keith David.
He dies, and he's a crooked judge.
Man, I really thought we were going to get him for the whole series, and I was kind of excited. But then it was like, they couldn't pay him. They couldn't pay him to stick around for the whole show.
Literally, somehow Community did for like a whole season. Come on, Justified.
That's a good pick. I'm going to go ahead and go with Vivian Oliphant, who plays Willa. I think she gets let down by a trope, and I'm hoping they do her character and justice and give her more to work with moving forward. I'm hoping.
I'm hoping that, because I'm 95% certain that her mom on the show is still alive in this world.
Right, yeah.
Bring back Natalie Z. Come on.
Yeah, I enjoyed their, and I would like to know some more backstory, because doesn't that show end up with them back together?
No,
I'm
it
remembering.
Looks like they're going to, and then she's like, Raylan, I can't do this. I want to co-parent with you, but I can't be in a relationship with you. And I think that she either gets engaged at the end of it or she's like, I'm just going to do me. And
Okay. I'm vaguely remembering that. Now that's coming back to me.
because there's a significant part of either the last season or the season before that that's looking like they're back together.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is I definitely want more story for poor Vivian Oliphant, who I think gets smacked right into a trope of being the damsel in distress and the dumb teenager who can't keep herself from being manipulated and used by the bad guys. A la Kim Bauer. I don't want another Kim Bauer. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping she doesn't get Kim Bauer, but this first couple episodes, I have to give her the loser of the first 2 episodes. And hopefully we won't have to keep doing that.
How dare you?
Write better. Write the characters better. Okay. Anything else before we go? What's it? Do you want to give a out of 10 for the first 2 episodes? How many cowboy hats out of 10?
Okay, so episode 1, it's a setup episode. Probably a 6.5. Like nothing outstanding. It's good. Episode 8 or episode 2 where it ends, like it leaves me at an 8 because I'm like, I'm really excited for episode 3. Why is episode 3 not out?
Yeah. It takes those first 2 episodes to really get going for me. I would be closer together. I'd be like 6 and 7, probably. So we could average it together at a 6.5, but it's overall, you understand that it's setting it up. It's just putting the pieces in place. And I think we're in for a good show, even though I really got flustered and set off by the inclusion of that scene early on where I'm just like, was that necessary? But I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
It was
just,
not necessarily justified.
It wasn't. All right. What did you guys think of the first 2 episodes of Justified City Primeval on FX? Is it meeting your expectations already? Are you glad Raylan's back? Did you also think the inclusion of that scene at the beginning was a little much, FX?
Are you ready for a killing to be justified?
Are you ready for some justified bad behavior? Do you also worry that we're Kim Bowering his daughter, Willa? Tell us what your thoughts are on the first 2 episodes and get ready to watch along the whole season of Justified City Primeval with us. We'll be with you for the next 5 weeks here on Watch Alongs to do just that thing. So tell us what you think on the social media posts for this. And if you haven't subscribed to the pod and give us a review and all that jazz, follow us on Facebook and Twitter and join the community group. I think that's everything.
It is for me.
We'll see you next time.